Last night, I treated my wife like a queen. We had been going through a rough patch lately, and this seemed like the right time to set things right. I'd taken the day off from work ostensibly to take our two kids, Ben, 14, and Lily, 12, to a week-long soccer camp, but mostly to make sure everything was perfect. I began by sending 24 long-stem red roses to Emily at her office. I wrote the note myself. Roses are red. My love for you is true. My plans for tonight will make it clearer to you. Dinner's on me. Dessert is just you. Seconds and thirds, guaranteed. Yeah, I know. Not exactly Shakespeare, but I figured it would do the trick. I was right. She greeted me at the front door with a passionate kiss and a report on how jealous her coworkers were. Emily fixed me with a lusty gaze. Lucky doesn't even begin to describe the night you're going to have. I took charge immediately and corrected her. This night is all about you. Step 2 was to draw my love a steamy bubble bath, complete with a glass of perfectly chilled Chardonnay. I told her to take her time while I got dinner ready. Not that I was cooking. I simply drove to her favorite Italian place and picked up dinner for two. I popped it into the oven upon my return. I had just finished setting the table when I heard Emily behind me. You are a naughty, naughty boy. I turned to see a vision in red. Emily was wearing everything I'd bought that day. The pair, the bra and panty set, the garter, the stockings, and the red stilettos. They screamed, "Screw me." She had no idea just how naughty I planned on being. Dinner, and lots of wine later, I led her to our bedroom. She followed willingly as I slowly undressed her along the way, laying her on the bed. I rained kisses all over her body. I kissed her breasts until they were swollen, red, and erect. I nibbled that certain spot at the base of her neck that had her squirming beneath me. I basically tortured her with foreplay, constantly moving around her body. As soon as she got really into whatever I was doing, I took her through a second and then a third round, before we screamed our simultaneous orgasms. We rested for a few minutes, saying those words that lovers say. Actually, I was doing most of the talking. She was somewhat incoherent. I told her again and again how much I loved her. I crawled into bed next to her and fell immediately asleep. I slept very soundly, awaking early the next morning. I showered and was out the door before she knew it. I left a note reminding her that I would have to work late to make up for taking the day off before. Oh, I definitely had my work cut out for me today. Today, I, Thomas Evans, am sitting in ambush for a 405. I checked my watch. Any minute now, the 405 would be my wife of 15 years, Emily, the aforementioned queen of last night's amorous activities. Emily had been cheating on me for, well, as near as I can determine, the better part of a year. I've been sure for the last month, suspicious for 2 before that. My suspicions were based on the little things that flow back and forth between couples, the behaviors, the habits, and most importantly, the easy evasions that hint something's not quite right here. For instance, there were lots of little things that by themselves were all innocently explained. Things like our sex life being weighed down, while Emily dressing sexy was way up. She was feeling it. I sure as hell wasn't getting it. I know, that's not much to go on. One of the primary instances that caught my attention and coalesced my observations into suspicions was a night out without the kids. Emily met me at the restaurant, having come directly from work. It turned out to be the operative word because Emily had the unmistakable glow of someone who just had really good sex. It was in her eyes, her face, and particularly in the way she moved that night. When I should have gotten lucky, she begged off sex, citing a mild yeast infection. I settled for a BJ and decided to find out the truth. So, I started checking up on her, monitoring her time away from me, checking the laundry, and listening very, very carefully to everything she said. It's amazing the things you pick up in common conversations when you really pay attention. I've always operated on the idea that a woman will do everything she can to avoid an outright lie. This doesn't mean you'll get the truth. It means you have to really listen and consider all of the possible meanings of the words being spoken, almost as if you were playing verbal chess. So many possibilities and permutations. I was surprised at the subtle insinuation of disrespect that permeated our interactions. There was an undeniable condescension. I seemed to have lost my former position in the hierarchy and equality of our relationship. That, and it was difficult to get a hold of her at work on Tuesdays and Thursdays after afternoons. Even though in my mind, my suspicions had turned to certainty, there was nothing worth going to see a lawyer about. Then I found what I needed: actual physical evidence. A pair of crusted black sheer panties. I knew the last time I'd seen her wearing these panties. I knew to the day. The last time we'd had sex. The discrepancies between these two dates added up to infidelity as far as I was concerned. At that point, she was more likely guilty than innocent. Confronting Emily was a little more problematic. I mean, she'd been lying to me for who knows how long. I assumed that she had her cheating excused by some form of perverted rationalization. I decided on a simple, straightforward approach. I suggested another husband and wife only night out, reminding her that she owed me. I asked her specifically to wear the black sheer panties that night. As we dressed, I reminded her about the panties, and she said I wouldn't be disappointed. Dinner was fine, as I generously poured on the attention and the wine. By the time we got home, Emily was as horny as I'd seen her in years. She stripped for me. I lay back against the headboard, hands behind my head. "Come on, you sexy thing. Show me what you got." Emily began to sway drunkenly but shook her head. "Emily, you owe me. We haven't had sex in almost a month. Actually, it was just 2.5 weeks, but I wanted her to say that." I waggled my finger at her. "We had sex the day you went on that trip." She paused. 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Fine, 2.5 weeks. One fact agreed to. "Okay, but don't expect this every time you take me out." I nodded my head as Emily slowly disrobed. She unzipped her skirt, bent over, and hooked her thumbs in the material. "Hey, who's doing the striptease anyway?" She was trying to joke, but I heard the hard edge beneath her tone. "Hey, I thought this was about pleasing me. I wanted to see those." "What's the big deal with those?" "Tim, come on. I'm horny." "You're horny. I gave you those as an anniversary gift last year. Remember? They symbolize our marriage, our intimate bond. Come on, humor me. Drop the skirt and let me see those panties." I couldn't find them. "Tim, all right." She was furious with me. "They're probably in the wash. You always wash your lingerie together. You have the bra. Where are the panties?" I was not about to let this go. "I told you, I couldn't find them." She was getting pissed, and I just got calmer and calmer. "Hey, don't get mad at me. I'm just the guy who gave them to you and asked you to wear them for him." I shrugged in innocence. "All you had to do was say something earlier. I wouldn't have insisted if you had told me the truth. All you had to do was be truthful. What's so hard about that?" "So, the last time you wore them was right before my trip. I remember because you looked so sexy in them when we were getting ready for bed. You took them off." "Hey, maybe they got kicked under the bed." "Look, Tim, can we just forget about the damn panties right now?" The horniness was draining from her face. I could see a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. "Can't you just make love to me?" "Sure, no problem." Emily sighed in relief. I wasn't done with her yet. "I think I remember where I bought those, man. They really meant a lot to me." "Yes, Tim." Her voice was edged with weariness. "I can see that." She stepped back from the bed, her desire clearly ebbing. The last time I saw you with them on was right here in this room." I rolled off the bed and knelt beside it, lifting the sheet. "You took them off before we had sex, right? I think you were standing right about here. Remember?" "I remember, Tim. I was standing here. I took them off, and we had sex, but now I'm standing here. I'm not wearing them, and I seem to be developing a headache. I think I'll give you a rain check on the rest of the evening." Emily began to pick up her clothes. "What's the problem?" "They're just panties. No big deal." Emily looked miserable. "Are we okay, Tim? Is there something you want to tell me? I mean, it's been 2.5 weeks since we had sex and I make a simple request, and now I'm in the doghouse. Why didn't you just tell me that you didn't know where the panties were? What's so hard about being honest with me? Why would you try to hide something like that?" "I don't know. I didn't want to disappoint you. I know it's been a while since we've been together. We're both so busy with careers and family. I guess I've turned next to nothing into a big to-do. I am sorry." "Me too." "Well, how about we reschedule?" "Well, looky here." I smiled as I pulled out the crusty underwear and extended them to her. She took them, looking puzzled, momentarily horrified, then surprisingly confident. So that's where they've been. I thought I'd looked there. I had to give her credit. She was recovering very quickly. Go ahead, put them on. They're filthy, Tim. I'll make sure you're the first to see them after I wash them. That's it. I had to admire her brazenness. Why? Is there something else? We haven't had sex in 2.5 weeks. We agreed the last time you wore these. You took them off before we had sex. Explain to me what they're all crusty with. I silently congratulated myself on not sounding accusatory. It looks like load. What happened next was a bravura performance of lies and evasions. We were wrong on the dates and timings of when we'd had sex. She even made a big deal over realizing that I suspected her of seeing someone else. I was jealous over nothing. The capper, she thought it was cute that I suspected her of being a sex-crazed vixen. I apologized profusely for my jealousy and poor memory. I watched the look of conquest glow from her. I'm sure she thought everything was all right. It wasn't all right. She was wrong. It wasn't nothing, and there's nothing cute about being a 304. I knew that much. My apologies dissolved into a white-hot, quiet anger. My anger ushered in a change of perspective. I was no longer in doubt. I knew then that she was screwing someone else. As far as I was concerned, our marriage was over. I knew, and soon, she would know that I knew. When you're no longer in denial, you can actually find out a lot in a very short amount of time. I wanted incontrovertible evidence. Basically, I wanted to catch her in the act, and I was willing to do whatever it took. It's amazing what they can do with modern GPS equipment, a tap on your own phones, a bit of computer snooping, and a couple of digital voice recorders. All too soon, I had a fairly clear picture of who he was, what they did, how often, and most importantly, when they planned to meet next. Her lover was some guy named Mark. They met 2 to 3 times per week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and frequently Saturdays, usually at a hotel on the other side of town. It all seemed so routine when you listened to the recordings. The biggest surprise for me was the complete lack of guilt on Emily's part. In the tape conversations, I was usually characterized as simply someone to be scheduled around. That was it. I was a complication to their being together. When I realized Emily's utter lack of concern and the depth of her disrespect for me, I went from some ambiguous thoughts of possible reconciliation with her, really having to make it up to me, to absolute retribution. She was going to pay. I wasn't going to fight for her. She was now the enemy. I was going to fight her for everything. It's amazing what that kind of clarity can do for you. I can even tell you the exact moment that I reached that tipping point. It occurred in the hearing of her side of a single conversation, shortly after the panty incident. A voice recorder in her car caught this side of a cell phone conversation between Emily and her lover, Mark. Emily suspicious? Not anymore. Tim trusts me completely. You should see him go out of his way to be nice to me. It really is quite cute. Emily, I just explained that the crusty scene in the dirty underwear he found was his. I said that I'd been looking for weeks for those panties. I thanked him for finding them underneath the washer. He bought it without a second thought. Emily laughed. Yeah, but he's my dumb man. Emily, yeah, I do adore him. Be patient. I'm almost there. Emily, no, Mark. I've told you before. I loved him. He's my husband. Emily, yes, I love you too, but in a different way. Thank God I don't have to choose. I have the best of both worlds. A husband who makes love to me, and a lover who totally screws me. It's funny, the things you can consider when you no longer care about the other person. That which was going to pay big time. Playing the cards you're dealt, my payback was multi-pronged. I wanted Emily to suffer, short-term and long-term. If things went as planned, Emily would never forget her cheating. I can't say I was looking to put a hurt on Mark. As far as I was concerned, he was just an opportunistic prick. If trouble came his way, so be it. Our kids were a different story. I wanted to protect them from the initial blast of our family dissolving. Plus, I wanted it all to land on Emily. I wanted her to look into their sad faces and know that she alone was responsible. In that way, they actually determined my timing. I waited for the school year to end and arranged for them to attend a week-long soccer camp at a university a couple of hours' drive away. The camp ran Monday through Friday. I dropped the kids off Monday morning and took the time to talk with the camp directors. I explained that I was having serious problems with their mother involving infidelity and possible drug use. I tossed that in for effect. It definitely got their attention. I told them I'd be filing for divorce today or tomorrow, depending on when she dragged herself home. I wanted to shield the kids during the initial days of anguish. The directors were very sympathetic. Tuesday was the day of reckoning. Emily was scheduled to meet Mark at 4 in the afternoon. I spent that day getting all my ducks in a row, divorce papers ready, locks changed, bank accounts and credit cards taken care of. This was a day Emily would never forget. I checked my watch again. Timing was all important. I smiled when I saw her car enter the parking lot. Operation, slap the 304 down, was now operational. I called Emily's office as soon as I saw her car turning into the parking lot. I left a quick message on her voicemail saying there was an emergency and to call me on my cell phone as soon as possible. Mark arrived a few minutes later. Damn, he was young, mid to late 20s by my guess. Any remaining trepidations about my intended course of action vanished when I saw Emily enthusiastically kiss Mark. I called her cell phone while she was still kissing him. She looked at her phone and did what I thought she would. She let it ring. I hung up at the start of her voicemail and called again. I figured she would either turn her phone off or lock it in her car. That way, she had plausible deniability if I asked her later why she didn't answer. She chose option number 2 and locked the phone in her car. That's when I left a message that said there was a family emergency and that she needed to call me as soon as she could. I watched them enter the room and began to call and hang up every couple of minutes. I planned on leaving dozens of missed call flags on her phone. I waited about 20 minutes, figuring they were at the very least naked if not having sex. Then I drove to a spot next to Emily's car. I opened my trunk, best to look natural in case anyone was looking in my direction. All they would see was some guy with the trunk of his car open. Did you know you can unscrew the inner part of a tire valve stem and the air rushes out in no time at all? In less than 3 minutes, I flattened both tires on the driver's side of Emily's car and screwed the inner valves back into place. It looked as if she'd run over a bunch of nails. Tough luck. Mark's truck received some special treatment. Okay, I wasn't looking to physically hurt Mark, but since I had the opportunity, I decided to screw with him too. I had borrowed a small floor jack, so I jacked up the front of his car and loosened the oil pan bolt until it was just holding on. I lowered his car, put the jack in my trunk, and closed it. I was finished with everything in 15 minutes. I drove off and waited for them to finish. They came out of the room 2 hours later with more kissing and hugging. The only noticeable difference was that Emily's movements were more languid and affectionate. She gets that way after sex. Her movements were anything but languid when she saw the 2 flat tires. She was gesturing and waving her arms around as she walked front to back alongside her car. Mark must have said something stupid because she turned and said something that had him putting his hands up in front of him as he shook his head and backed away. Idiot. I called her phone. She looked in the car and fished around in her purse for her car key. I swear. You could see her flinch when she saw the number of missed calls. It was showtime. I saw her dial and prepared myself for my performance. Hello, Tim. Her voice sounded shaky and nervous. My God, Emily. Where have you been? I was yelling into the phone. I paused to take a breath. You don't have to yell, Tim. I can hear you just fine. I've been trying for hours to get a hold of you. Where are you? Why aren't you at work? I had my voice pitched right at the edge of panic. Emily started to stammer out some lame excuse. I started talking over her, crinkling some paper and breaking up my speech pattern. Be quiet and listen. There's been a serious accident at the soccer camp. Both kids have been taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. The doctor's not sure if they'll make it. Hurry. My battery's dying. Did you get that? Medical center. I'll meet you there. Hurry, Mel. I hung up and turned off my phone. I could see her shouting into the phone. Then she swung into action. Emily pushed Mark to his car, and soon they were heading for the freeway. I waited until they were out of sight, then drove to Emily's car. I pulled the phony nails out of her tires and refilled them both with cans of Flat Fix. She was going to need her car before the end of the day. I had 2 more calls to make before I drove home. I headed for the freeway they would be taking to get to the university. I stopped at the first emergency call box on the freeway and pulled out 2 of my voice recorders. I was soon talking to the State Highway Patrol. Hi, officer. I want to report a case of road rage, I guess you'd call it. I was going the speed limit, I said with emphasis. And this blue Toyota pickup just came flying up behind me right on my bumper. Excuse my language. I should have pulled over. But well, anyway, this crazy guy starts leaning on his horn, then he swings out around me. I'm surprised he didn't hit anyone, and swerves up right next to me, almost hitting me. As bad as that was, I had my wife and kids with me. Then he sped up and cut right in front of me. I got a partial plate, just the last 3 numbers, 392. My name is... I pressed the recorder. An angry female voice blared out of the speaker. Tell them about the gun. Harold? I saw a gun. That crazy a-hole flashed a gun at you. I turned away from the phone. Honey, I didn't see it. Look, I'm just telling them my name. I pressed the second recorder. So those crazy people can track us down and kill us. Hang up, Harold. Hang up right now. Like this. Harold. I disconnected the call. I'd recorded those phrases with a woman at work who had a booming southern drawl. I told her it was for a practical joke on my shiftless brother-in-law. She'd given me half a dozen takes without batting an eye. I got back in my car and headed home. On the way, I called the soccer camp people and, in a world-weary voice, I informed them that telling my wife I was divorcing her had not gone well. I told them that she had gone ballistic and threatened my life. I warned them that she and her lover might be on their way there to try and take the children. I told them I was just calling to be certain that they wouldn't release the children to them, as my wife's lover was a known drug user, and it wasn't a safe situation for the kids. The camp operators were very understanding. I asked them not to say anything to the kids unless it was absolutely necessary. An hour or so later, I was sitting at home eating pizza and drinking beer. I figured I had at least one more hour before Emily might show up. That would be the case if she was able to contact the soccer camp and determine that the kids were fine. I didn't think that was likely, as I had made all the arrangements and she didn't even have the proper name for the camp, let alone the phone number. If she got to the university, she would then find out that there wasn't a university medical center or hospital if she got there. I had to smile at that. If the oil drain plug had fallen out, she and Mark would be sitting by the side of the road a couple of hours later. The camp called to report that Emily and a male companion had indeed shown up. They arrived in the company of the state police. The police had pulled them over for speeding and just about strip-searched them, looking for weapons, something about a report of road rage. The camp officials assured her that the kids were fine, but that they had refused to let Emily see them unless it was in the presence of their father. She asked them what the hell that was supposed to mean. That's when one of the camp people mentioned the impending divorce and asked if the man she was with was her husband or her lover. They said Emily went white as a sheet. Then she became hysterical. The state police had to escort Emily and Mark off the campus grounds. Then the soccer camp folks made my day. I couldn't have planned this part. While Emily and Mark were talking, one of the staff mentioned the drug user reference to the police. They pulled Mark over just after they left the campus and searched him again. Evidently, Mark got pissed and got into it with one of the officers. They arrested him for driving while impaired. Emily was deemed unfit to drive due to her hysterical emotional state and was taken into temporary custody too. I received a call from the state police not long after speaking with the camp folks. I had a very nice conversation with Sergeant Watson. I explained that my wife had been cheating on me and that I'd finally had enough. Emily was informed this afternoon that I had seen a lawyer and had filed for divorce. I gave the sergeant my lawyer's telephone number. The sergeant asked if I'd stay available, as he wanted to talk to my wife. I said sure, but don't be surprised if she denies everything. I even suggested it was okay with me if they wanted to take a vaginal swab. He declined. A half hour later, he called back. They were releasing Emily and that my wife wanted to talk with me. I told the sergeant that she was free to call my lawyer at the number I had provided. He kind of laughed a little when he asked if I was coming to pick Emily up. I informed him that her car was in the parking lot of the motel where she'd been screwing her lover. He chuckled a little at that. 10 minutes later, the phone rang and I saw Emily's cell number on the caller ID. I picked up and said nothing. Finally, after a long pause, I heard an inhalation and Emily's quavering voice. Tim, I don't know what you think is going on, but please don't make this any worse than you already have. Your adultery has destroyed our family. You stupid 304. I hung up and turned the ringer off. I would have loved to see her face when she heard the new answering message on the machine. Hi, this is Tim. Emily no longer lives here. Her cell number is... It was 2 in the morning when I heard someone pounding on the front door. I walked to the door and shouted through it, "Your things are in the driveway." I'd packed up and stuffed her clothes into a bunch of trash bags. Take your cheating bum and go away. Tim, please let me in. Emily sounded absolutely exhausted. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. We need to talk. I love you, Tim, please. We went back and forth. I didn't budge. Finally, I played part of a phone conversation I'd taped when she was driving in her car. She was talking to Mark and saying how much she loved having sex with him. I turned the volume up loud when it came to the part of their sex conversation. Emily started to cry. I told her to get her stuff and go stay with her lover, or whoever else she was screwing. She finally left, telling me that she was going to her parents and would be back tomorrow to straighten this all out. The next day didn't quite work out the way she intended. Actually, none of the days that followed worked out for her. I was as relentless as I was unmerciful. I had her officially served at work on Thursday. That little stunt had her waiting by my car at the end of the workday. She was furious. I have nothing to say to you, 304. I was quite pleased with my ability to remain calm. Don't you dare talk to me that way. I can't believe you had me served at work. Do you have any idea what you've done? She was as angry as I'd ever seen her. What I've done? I'll talk to you however I choose. Would you prefer stupid 304? Tim, I admit that I may have made a mistake. We can work through this. I love you, Tim. Let's stop this silliness. And silliness? You're a cheating, stupid 304. If I give you $20, will you go away? How dare you? I am your wife, Tim. I am the mother of our children. Now they're going to be coming home tomorrow, and they're going to find me. They're going to find just me. I imagine you, the stupid 304, will be on your back somewhere with Loverboy. Tim, please stop calling me names. It's not going to help us. We need to talk about this. I realize you're angry and upset, but we can work through this. Tim, our marriage can be stronger for this. Would you listen to yourself, you stupid 304? Stop calling me names, Tim. Okay, answer me this. I glared at her with an intensity of hatred that surprised even me. She wilted before me. You chose to be with another man. You stripped naked before him. You gave him a BJ and let him screw you. By doing this, you risked everything. Our marriage, our family, my love and respect for you, my health. By the way, dearest, I've been tested, and I'm clean so far. HIV testing is a 6-month wait. She petted at that comment. You risked everything. What did Loverboy risk? No, it's not like that. Emily was shaking. You risked everything. He risked nothing. What did you get? Tell me, what did you get? She just shook her head, unable to speak. That's exactly right. You got nothing. No jewelry, no trips to romantic locales, no cars, nothing. No secret bank account, no suitcase full of money. Not one damn thing, did you? You got nothing. Well, you're right about one thing. I have absolutely no right to call you a stupid 304. A 304 is smart enough to get something for sex. You screwed another man for which you got nothing, and now you're going to lose everything. You're not even smart enough to be a decent 304. Calling you one is giving 304s a bad name. I guess that just makes you a really dumb one. I drove away with her sitting on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Screw her. Cashing in my chips, I arrived at the lawyer's office right on time. I had even stopped by the house to shower and dress in a suit. I wanted her to see me at my best. I sat opposite her in the lawyer's office. If I cared for her in any way, the look that Emily leveled at me should have broken my heart. Her pain was palpable, but my expression remained calm and impassive. My resolve was unwavering. She made one last effort to put off the inevitable. I simply glanced down at my watch, then back up at Emily. Her shoulders slumped. She picked up the pen and asked my lawyer where to sign. Victory was mine. The first document she signed was the petition for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. At one time, I had cared deeply that the cause be listed as adultery. I was fortunate to have a lawyer who really knew how to bring on the pain. The key, she had told me again and again, was in the terms and conditions of the divorce. Success was determined by knowing what the other side wanted and what you could force them to give up in return. The whole signing process was literally a performance my lawyer and I had choreographed. There were props and characters. It was really quite impressive. The next document was a name change request. Emily was being required to revert back to her maiden name. If you don't think that's a big deal, guess again. She was no longer going to have the same last name as our children. That point alone almost sunk the agreement. Oh yeah, that one hurt big time. I watched as Emily relinquished my surname, tears trickling down her cheeks. A small black tray was placed before her. This time, when Emily looked at me, her expression seemed hollowed out. Then it hit me, and I actually felt a twinge of sympathy for her. It wasn't just that any hope of avoiding this was failing. It was more than that. The realization of loss was being overwhelmed by the actual reality of surrender. Her losses were suddenly real. These were not negotiating points any longer. She looked at the tray and shuddered as she removed her wedding ring. As soon as she placed it on the tray, it was quickly removed from the room. She twisted her engagement ring on her finger. I had let her keep it, but even that small victory was about to turn to ashes. "Do you know why I'm letting you keep that ring, Emily?" I asked, my voice cold. "I gave you that ring when I asked you to be my wife. I want you to keep that ring to remember all that we promised and all that you've thrown away." I pulled my wedding band off my finger and pushed it toward her. "You can have this back. It's still whole and complete. I kept my promises." One of my lawyer's assistants returned with the tray. Emily's ring had been cut in two. I picked up the pieces and held them in my open hand, then tossed the pieces into a trash can. Worthless crap. Emily seemed to waver in her chair and reached out to grip the table. Her head was bobbing slightly. My thrill of victory was beginning to fade. I actually began to feel sorry for her as the next document was placed before her, a quitclaim deed for her share of the house. The key here was that the monetary value of her share was being put into a college trust for the children, with her as trustee until they came of age. Finally, we came to the document that had leveraged her acceptance of everything that had preceded it, the custody agreement. My lawyer spoke clearly. "Do you fully understand the conditions of this custody agreement? The children remain in the house. Parents alternate living in the house on a weekly basis. The transition of custody to occur every Sunday between the hours of 6 and 7 p.m. All expenses to be borne equally until the children finish college or reach the age of maturity. If you agree to these conditions and arrangements, just sign at the bottom." I watched my soon-to-be ex-wife sign. The pen fell listlessly from her hand, and she began to cry in earnest. Defeat is not a pretty sight, and it lasts a long, long time. I had been a step ahead of Emily from the moment she exited that motel room with Mark. My position was unchanging: divorce and controlling custody of the kids. I guess she thought she could find a way around all this. I had a couple of things going for me. The kids, of course, were the key. I'd gone out of my way to protect them and ensure that Emily and her parents had access to them. I also promised not to tell the kids what their mother had done that led to our divorce. That was couched in the language of "your mom and dad are parting as partners, but not as parents." The other key was the threat of reveal and releasing video evidence of Emily and Mark. Although, truth be told, I really didn't have any. Years before, a friend had told me that he'd seen an adult movie starring an actress who bore a striking resemblance to Emily. I checked it out and had to admit that there was a real resemblance. During the planning phase of my retribution, I turned that resemblance to my advantage by buying a number of those movies. I found a couple of videos with actors that matched a verbal description of Mark: mid or late 20s, average height and weight, dark hair, etc. By taping portions of the videos off the TV with my camcorder, I was able to produce a pretty graphic motel room session. It looked like video shot under poor lighting conditions, and it was especially effective when viewed on the 2.5-inch LCD screen of the camera. It looked like Emily being screwed by Mark. Emily would have spotted it as a fake in a second, but not her dad. We had a meeting where he tried to convince me to give Emily another chance. He said that he was willing to pay a lawyer to keep the divorce from happening. So I showed the video to her dad. I told him this was one of the easier ones to view, and that I had hours of the stuff. Evidently, he was very effective in persuading Emily to drop her opposition. I guess I would be too if an irate son-in-law was threatening to email the video to everyone and anyone they knew. Family, friends, co-workers, etc. The clincher, when all was said and signed, was the joint custody alternating weeks. I made sure that there was specific and clear language in the agreement that Emily was prohibited from bringing her lovers. I insisted the plural be used, into the house. You know what's funny? The last thing I expected when getting divorced was the effect it seemed to have on women. I'd be lying if I didn't say that my own self-esteem had taken a huge hit after being cheated on by Emily. You can't help but feel you're not much of a man. At the very least, you must be a lousy lover. I was shocked to find out that my new marital status, or lack thereof, was like catnip to women. During the divorce, I had stubbornly taken the high ground regarding revenge sex, or even dating for that matter. That just wasn't who I was. Plus, my lawyer insisted on no additional complications. But as an officially single man with good credit and plenty of disposable income, suddenly I was a catch. And you want to know what was even better? There were a lot of women out there determined to see me through this difficult time. I was pleasantly surprised at the number of women willing to help me get back in the saddle, so to speak. They were so persistent that I began to look forward to my time living at home with the kids. I needed the rest. I had offers from women at work, from acquaintances, including some who were good friends with Emily, and even from fellow residents of my new apartment building, where I stayed during my off week. This is how the first time happened. While I was still moving into my new place, I'd ordered pizza, so the soft knock indicating its arrival wasn't unexpected. The delivery person sure was. I recognized her as someone I'd seen in the building, but I didn't know her name. "Hi, my name is Darla." She pronounced it Darla, with an emphasis on the A and I, just like that. "I just wanted to welcome you to the building." Darla was average-looking and had an easy-to-like quality about her. I invited her in, and we shared the pizza and a couple of beers. Darla was divorced, and it seemed she tried to screw everything female over 18, and some under, I suspect. Able-bodied, plumpish, and refreshingly straightforward. "Tim, I like you. You seem like a real nice guy. So anytime you need the company of a woman, you just call old Darla." I nodded unknowingly. I almost started to say that I could handle the cooking and cleaning just fine as a freshly single guy, but I was really clueless. I love giving BJs, both the giving and the getting. Screwing only happens after a date. Darla had spoken so clearly and matter-of-factly that I wasn't even erect yet. "Well, all right, Tim. You've got a good one here." Lucky me. It was without a doubt the weirdest proposition I had ever received. It was followed by one truly excellent BJ. There's just something to be said for a woman who truly enjoys giving a BJ. I realized that Darla was such a woman. Lucky me. It wasn't just her enthusiasm. It was her technique, too. I can't begin to describe what she was doing, mostly because my head was tilted back in unrestrained ecstasy. The next night, the BJ was repeated, followed by my going down on her. By the end of the night, we were having sex. I'd managed to convince her that the pizza dinner we'd shared the night before counted as being a date. We started having sex frequently. Not that we were exclusive, far from it. A couple of weeks after we'd taken up, Darla had to go out of town on business during one of my off weeks, so she sent a friend over. Rhonda wasn't into BJs near as much as Darla, but oh God, could that woman screw. I have to admit that I was a bit of a 304 at first. I bet it. Well, it's probably more accurate to state that I screwed and was screwed by 17 different women during the first year of my divorce. The sex was great, if a little empty. I freely admit that I missed the intimacy that Emily and I had once had. On the other hand, that missing only fueled my continuing anger toward her. I made no effort to hide my amorous activities from her. I enjoyed seeing that hurt in her eyes every Sunday evening. Slowly, things settled into a routine. Even the kids seemed to be doing okay. Holidays were painful, especially the first time through, but we managed. Months became years, and we all got older, if not wiser. It was 4 years post-divorce that the unexpected happened. I fell in love. The kids were involved in a youth group at church. The group went on all kinds of outings, including a couple of snow weekends. I was asked to chaperone on occasion and was more than happy to help out. It was during a ski trip that Jillian, one of the other chaperones, the sister of one of the youth ministers, broke her arm. After first aid was rendered by the ski patrol, I was asked to run her down the hill to get it x-rayed and put in a cast. The hospital, once we got there, was swamped due to a traffic accident, and we ended up going across the street to eat and kill a couple of hours. Jillian was cute, rather than beautiful, and all of 25. As we talked and ate, I became aware that we had real chemistry between us. I found myself deeply attracted to Jillian. She did nothing to dissuade me. It took me a month to summon the courage to ask her out on an official date. After all, I was 21 years her senior. She accepted. She told me her dad was 12 years older than her mom, and they were still together. We began to date. I slowly let go of my harem over the next few weeks as Jillian and I got serious. Everything was happening fairly fast. Jillian and I were a couple of months into our relationship. Yep, that's what it was when Emily asked if I was in love with Jillian. I was all prepared to deny it when I realized I couldn't lie about something like that. I answered with a quiet yes. Emily just nodded and then hugged me. You deserve to be happy. I was stunned. 1, that I realized that I really did love Jillian. 2, that Emily sensed and accepted it. And 3, when I told this to Jillian, she simply smiled and said it had taken me long enough. For the first time in years, I realized that I was truly happy. I was actually content within myself. That was when I understood that there was something very important that I needed to do. I had accepted Emily's apology for her unfaithfulness years ago, but at the time, I refused to forgive her. It was time for me to formally forgive Emily. During the drive over to Emily's house, I recalled her effort at apology and explanation the first time. Hardly counted, though. It was just before we signed the divorce and custody agreements. Emily had asked for a half-hour meeting, just the two of us, before signing. I knew what she was going to try and do, talk me out of the divorce. I went prepared. On the way to the meeting, I played recordings of Emily and Mark's sex. I spent the entire half-hour looking at her like she was less than dirt. When the half-hour was up, I looked at my watch and picked up a pen. She knew she had failed. Her second attempt was just after our first round through the holidays, the first time we celebrated as a split-apart family. Due to a quirk in the calendar, I ended up with the kids for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was a miserable time, and early in January, Emily asked to speak with me. That's when I found out she knew I was dating, or as she termed it, your open door, open fly bimbo policy. It went downhill from there. Look, Tim, I know I messed up. I've caused a lot of pain in our family, Tim. The holidays were horrible for me, for you, and for the kids. We've all suffered. I know that you've been with a number of different women, and it's just tearing me apart. We are meant to be together, Tim. All of us. I've scheduled an appointment for us with a couples counselor. It's time we got back together. I've learned my lesson. I was shocked. I was so surprised, so stunned at what Emily had just said that I couldn't respond at first. Then the anger began to flow, and my mind crystallized into cold focus. Learned your lesson? Yes, Tim. I will never lie to you again. I'll be completely honest. Emily looked at me with an expression of complete earnestness. I guess she believed her own lies. I see. What about your lovers? Does that mean you're planning on giving them up? Singular, not plural. I haven't talked to or seen Mark since that horrible day. Unlike you, I haven't dated anyone. Oh, I see, I said, looking at her and nodding my head slowly. So, then it's just straight to the sack, or does a backseat or park bench work just as well? How dare you? I have not been with any other man, period. Unlike you and your kitty on parade lifestyle, she shot back, her voice rising. I could see that she was getting pretty wound up. I just let her go. Do you have any idea how painful it is to know that you leave the kids and spend your week with anything that's willing? We're not married, Emily. 2, I'm a single guy now, and 3, like that means anything. You and I belong together. It doesn't matter that you're single. It's still cheating on me. You should stop playing around and give us a chance to get back together. I've had enough. Look, Emily, if you're horny, come on by some night and we can party. I always had a fantasy of you, me, and another woman. I'm game. That was pretty much the end of that conversation. Emily would try again every 6 months or so. It was only about a year ago that she was able to apologize with any real sincerity. She'd been in therapy, and I guess it seemed to help. I realized that as soon as she began to speak, even the tone of her voice was softer than usual. Tim, I want to start off by saying that I don't believe that I will ever be able to realize how deeply I hurt you with my betrayal of our marriage and my unconscionable lying to cover it up. I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am for the pain I've caused you and the kids, all because of my selfishness. It's only through therapy that I've come to understand how despicable and disgusting my behavior was. I am truly sorry. Apology accepted, I replied flatly. Emily went on to tell me that her infidelity, she never called it anything else after that, was a result of undiagnosed depression, a midlife crisis, and a complete breakdown in her values, morals, and ethics. She had done it, been unfaithful, simply because she could. When all was stripped away, that's what she was left with. Mark was not some amazing lover. Just the cheating made it seem better. There was nothing romantic or seductive about the way she met Mark. It was work-related. She met him while I was away on business, and they had danced and flirted on a Friday night after work. Mark had kept in touch with Emily after I'd returned. That was when the deceptions began. That's when Emily realized how thrilling it was to sneak around behind me. It became a game between her and Mark. The next time I left town for a couple of days, he had talked her into taking a half-day off. He took her to a restaurant in the lobby of a downtown hotel. They had flirted outrageously during the meal and drunk a fair amount of wine. He asked her if she was interested in dessert and offered a suggestion, the specialty of the house. He slid a room key across the table. Emily said she was flattered and declined Mark's offer. He talked her into at least checking out the view. Once in the room, she realized that it had no view. Mark said the prettiest view in the world was standing right in front of him. Emily said she just stood there, looking at him, aroused out of her mind. Mark pushed her up against the wall and screwed her savagely against it. He undressed and sat on the bed, looking at her. "Come get me hard if you want to screw some more." They screwed for the rest of the afternoon. When I returned, Emily took care of her guilt by paying extra attention to me. Only she was already waiting for the next time I'd be out of town. Eventually, she became so comfortable with cheating on me that she didn't wait for me to be out of town. That went on until I caught her. When she was done, I repeated that I accepted her apology and left it at that. I purposely did not say that I forgave her. That's why I needed to do that before getting serious with Jillian. I needed to forgive Emily so I could move forward. You should have seen the tears that Sunday night. Emily, the kids, we were all bawling our eyes out. Some tears were tears of sorrow and regret, but most were happy tears. I told Emily that despite it all, there was a part of me that would always love her. She said that she had never stopped loving me. I nodded in understanding. A father's need. Nothing is forever. That's always a tough one to learn. I loved Jillian, and she loved me. We were happy in our relationship, but both of us acknowledged that marriage was not in our future. For one thing, Jillian wanted kids, and I'd had a vasectomy just after Lily was born and was unwilling to consider reversal. Needless to say, our time together had an expiration date. It's just that neither of us knew what it was. We found out all too soon. During one of my off weeks, on a Saturday afternoon, to be specific, Jillian was lying on top of me after a particularly vigorous session of lovemaking when her phone rang. It was her mom. Jillian's dad had had a stroke. His outlook wasn't promising. We had Jillian packed and at the airport as soon as we could. We hugged and kissed, and in that moment, we realized that we were probably saying goodbye permanently. Jillian started crying. I just tried to hug her closer to me when they called her plane. We separated for the final time. Her parting words were, "I'll never forget you or ever stop loving you." I maintained my composure until I got in my car. Then I cried. I was alone, and it hurt terribly. I sat there and realized that my anger toward Emily at the time of our divorce had masked a lot of pain. Pain I had never really dealt with. Then my single and available status had distracted me from any serious introspection. My time with Jillian had changed all of that. It cured me of my anger toward Emily and reopened my heart to love. Since it was now Sunday morning, I drove to the house. Emily and the kids realized something was wrong immediately when I told them what had transpired. They were very sympathetic. Emily just took over. She made me breakfast, then lunch, and finally dinner. The two of us ended up talking until 1 in the morning, and then she went home. I didn't sleep well that night at all. During the week, I talked to Jillian a couple of times. Our conversations only finalized what we had both sensed at the airport. Jillian's dad was going to take a long time in recovery, and Jillian was going to stay and help her mom. I was really depressed. The kids were aware of what was going on and were incredibly supportive. Nevertheless, that Friday, I found myself very much alone. The kids were out with friends, and I had long since thrown out my little black book. Jillian had cured me of my kitty-prowling ways, and I had no desire to return to them. I was contemplating dinner when the doorbell rang. Emily stood there with a pizza, a six-pack, and a comforting smile. I returned the smile, took the six-pack out of her hand, and followed the aroma of the pizza as she walked past me into the house. We had a delightful evening chatting into the wee hours again. I was truly sorry to see her go home. Surprisingly, I slept fairly well that night. We've chosen different paths since then, never revisiting what once was. While I've forgiven Emily, the memories remain etched in my mind, a reminder of lessons learned and scars healed.